You on Zoom, can you confirm that you can hear us?
It be me, but I can hear you. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, and can everyone in the room hear Will? Did everyone just hear that?
It's kind of quiet. It was kind of mumbling.
That might be on me, not on the audio. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, we're good. Thank you, Will. I hope you feel better.
Yep, apologies.
for work session, and we have a couple of the shifts of things. First off, Counselor Anderson is with us by Zoom, not in the room, but we tested the audio and he can hear us and we can hear him. Because he's not here, we are postponing the neighborhood hubs discussion until he can be with us. So I think that's postponed until November 5th, election day. And so everything in the agenda moves up. We're going to do climate council goal and then Milwaukie parking, and then we're going to move our councilor report, which are usually at the end of the regular session, to the end of the session. So with that, I'll welcome Mayor Passarelli and Katie Gavaris.
Thanks, Mayor. And I'm going to really turn it over to Katie this afternoon. Katie's been working on an update to provide an update to council, to talk about where we are, where we've perhaps have stalled over the last 6 months because of lack of staff and some resources, and sort of the path forward on what we're intending to focus on over the next couple of years, actually. I think there's some exciting things on the horizon for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for having me. It's my first update to council, and I'm excited to be here and get to share some updates with you all. That was great context setting, so I think we can jump in. I wanted to start off by centering the work that Gabriela Santoyo Gutierrez, the Equity and Inclusion Coordinator, and I are working on, which is really grounding both of our work in council's goals of equity and climate and how we can institutionalize the intersections of them in our day-to-day work. And so we have started meeting regularly in biweekly check-ins with each other. And then also I've joined the internal equity committee to understand the priorities in each other's work and where we can align or coordinate better between our efforts. Two of the initiatives that or emerging priorities that we're finding between our works is the climate equity indicators and around community engagement. The climate equity indicators is an effort being led by the city manager's office to develop equity indicators to implement the city's strategic plan. And this will result in a community dashboard that Gabriela has kept you all updated on. But one outcome of this will be climate equity indicators. And we intend to use those as benchmarks for implementing our work. And really looking forward to having those indicators be transparent and accessible for community and based off of our community vision and strategic plan. And so working with Gabriela and the consultants on what those metrics should be. The second one is increasing our community education, outreach, and engagement on the city's climate and urban forestry goals. In the past, staff have had limited capacity and resources for consistent community engagement. For urban forestry, for example, this has resulted in community's first interaction with our natural resource and urban forestry team. It's often then with code enforcement. And that is, it's a punitive then interaction, and it hurts our efforts in really instilling and fostering community stewards and getting folks excited about our urban forests and our climate goals. And so it's a really big priority of myself and the team to prioritize resources, capacity, and center opportunities to engage the community, not just in urban forestry, but also in our climate goals and efforts. We're hoping to identify or build out a community engagement strategy, develop some more culturally relevant education materials, think it would be really exciting to look at a climate dashboard platform that can build off of the equity metric platform or dashboard that Gabriela is leading, and just continuously prioritizing frequent engagement efforts that bring back that consistency that we had a really strong track record on when we were developing the climate action plan and when we first developed our tree code. And Gabriela and I will be back in December to update the council for some additional thoughts and work to date on how we're looking at climate and equity together. So next we have our building performance standards. So Milwaukie remains a participant of the U.S. Department of Energy's Resilient and Efficiencies Code Implementation Grant. You'll hear it referred to as the RECI grant. So Milwaukie is partnering with Earth Advantage, the Oregon Department of Energy, and some regional governments, there are 4 of us, to implement building performance standards. These are outcome-based policies aimed to reduce our carbon impact on the built environment by requiring existing buildings to meet different energy and greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. The building performance standards have been established by the Bill 3409, Oregon Energy Performance Standards policy that was passed in 2021. And this applies to, there are 2 tiers of buildings this applies to. First, commercial buildings that are over 35,000 square feet. And the second tier is non-business commercial buildings like multifamily housing, schools, libraries that are over, again, 3,500 square feet. Or, did you say something?
35,000?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry. 35,000 or hotels and motels between 20,000 and 35,000 square feet. And so the city has been awarded $159,000 to partner on this grant with Earth Advantage and Odo and these other regional partners. These funds are used to, I've outlined kind of the key outcomes of this grant. So first, it's been to support the implementation and the administrative rulemaking of the Department of Energy's process of setting the building performance standards, which will be wrapped up shortly. Today is their first day of public notice or public comment period, and that will wrap up on November 15th. And then they will integrate any feedback from that. And then after that, they'll advance it to the state legislator to decide if they'll adopt it as law. So in addition, through this grant, we are analyzing the impacts of these determined building performance standards on Milwaukee's local building stock and our climate goals. So in addition to the funds awarded, this partnership gets us access to some technical assistance that can help us analyze how many buildings we have that fall into these different tiers and how it can impact our climate goals and our greenhouse gas reduction goals. Milwaukie doesn't have that many large buildings that this will affect. And so this will help us understand what it will affect and kind of where we might still have a gap to meeting our goals. This money is also allocated for engaging community and stakeholders. This effort throughout kind of this grant period, the jurisdictions are participating in trainings, monthly trainings from the Coalition of Communities of Color, who are informing us on how to weave community priorities, tenant advantages, and as well as the carbon reduction goals into building performance standards and the process of implementation. And with the hope that this awareness raising will help us with intentional community engagement to understand what are each of our local community priorities and needs through the implementation process. This will also help us develop guidance material. So when this grant was first submitted from Earth Advantage, the House Bill 3409 hadn't been passed yet. So developing these guidance materials were a little bit more of the focal point. And now we all have to, we get to comply and implement these building performance standards. And so the guidance materials are kind of morphing as we're in a new context. And I think where they're landed is maybe even a better benefit for us. Like I was saying, Milwaukee's building stock is a bit smaller. And so these guidance materials can take that research and analysis that we've done on what is our building stock and what are our climate goals, and will help us break down a plan of potentially additional standards, or what standards would be required to help us reach our goals, and also integrate what we've heard from community. If we integrate these priorities, what does that look like? And so help us with that forecasting, and then outline a recommended guidance for us. And then finally, the guidance material can help us consider if Milwaukie wants our own additional building performance ordinance that exceeds state requirements. The HB 3409 has a specific carve out for local governments to exceed state requirements, knowing that building stocks change really widely across this state. And so it's already within the policy. And so these efforts will also help us understand if we want to do something in addition.
Well, can I ask a couple questions? Sure. When we talk, is this work all, I mean, I remember when the legislation was being discussed about 35,000 square foot building. So that's obviously about existing buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a building performance standard that is already in place for new construction? Or is this also kind of designing that, what new industrial, commercial, large buildings?
This is not for new builds.
Okay.
I would have to get back to you and let you know.
I think we'll specifically have to check on this. There is a certain to this program, and things like as we've gone through and worked with Earth Advantage and the other grantees, sub-recipients, like it's sort of a learning experience. There's a lot of workshops, and it feels like there's still, as Katie mentioned, we're in this process of developing a lot of the guidance material and understanding how building performance standards are going to help us achieve our goals and the state's goals in terms of building carbon emissions.
Right.
So we're in this sort of like educational phase.
Okay.
So there's a lot of new material. Every meeting, Katie's mentioned that the light bulb is growing and growing, and are getting brighter and brighter as we go through this process. So there's some things that we need to find out, and I think there's certainly we don't have a signed sub-grantee agreement yet. We're in the process with our internally of getting that process. We just got that back from Earth Advantage last week, I think. So we're trying to get all these things put together. And there are also some. I think there will be some decisions for can you continue on this path and investigating and participating in this program.
I guess I would just comment on that last bullet about whether to consider our own code that exceeds state requirements. This is a issue, building performance standards is an issue that comes up in talking to other cities about gas ordinances and electrification of new construction. And so building performance standards are what they're looking at in Ashland and a few other cities. That relates to, we had that presentation, I think it was in January, from Kara Saylor about the NOx standard. It's sort of related to that. And so those are kind of the two main ways I'm hearing when I participate in these regional calls that cities are looking to regulate methane emissions in new construction too. So I just want to.
When we started discussions about participating in this process, we had, and I think Katie has a follow-on slide about it, but we had originally envisioned as using this process to help us do sort of multifamily energy disclosures. So providing that information similar to home energy score. But there's another process going on that Odo's doing that Katie's doing as well. But I think they complement each other.
Yeah. I think the last point is that, as Peter was saying, that is a great synopsis of how I walk out of every meeting about this, of like, oh, I get it so much more. And there'll be additional opportunities and important points to come back to you all with updates. And we're thinking in January and February, we'll know even more, and it'll be an opportunity to share where Odo is, as well as additional information that we continue to learn. So next up, as Peter hinted, the home energy score for rental housing. So when the home energy score policies were first enacted, the U.S. Department of Energy's home energy score tool only functioned for single-family homes to model them. However, the U.S. Department of Energy just updated this tool to include low-rise multifamily buildings, which makes it operational for so many more housing types that are frequently operated by renters. This is helpful as renters are, we all know this, and this is helpful as renters are most likely to be lower income, live in homes with less energy efficiency features, unable to access the efficiency funds that are coming from federal and state to pay into on energy bills. So in response to this, the Oregon Department of Energy and Earth Advantage published a study on pathways to incorporate the rental properties into existing home energy score standards, how it might impact Oregon rental housing, and actions to support rental housing stock and residents. This is a really great report and highly recommend for anyone interested in really digging in. And so kind of the next steps is Odo, or Oregon Department of Energy, is working on building out what a multifamily home energy score program would look like. And they will start with a financial study at the beginning of 2025. So as we learn more information from the Oregon Department of Energy, we can consider how this impacts our current home energy score ordinance and what we could do to include multifamily building into our efforts.
This is a great initiative, but I mean, would the landlords be then on the hook to do the surveys, the audits, to put into their listings?
Perhaps, yeah, I mean, that might be one requirement. I mean, we now, when a property for a single family home, when it goes on the market for sale, the requirement is that property owner go out and hire an energy auditor or a home energy score person to come and do that home energy score. And that sort of provides sort of like the miles per gallon for your house.
Yeah.
You know, like what does it cost and what are the energy improvements that can be made to the house to make it more energy efficient and save money in terms of energy. So I think most probably we'd be looking at the landlord as that person that would have that requirement. Or perhaps another way would be provide some sort of subsidy or something like that to tenants to go out and get. But I think ideally it'd probably be the landlord.
Yeah, and it talks about some of the challenges, the key challenges for rental housing, and that was one of them. And one of the recommendations is work with housing advocates in your community and county to support compliance through online reporting and work with tenant advocacy orgs to help enforce compliance. And so looking at where are some of the natural watchdogs that can help with that reporting component.
Do we have a copy of that study by chance? I mean, I can always look for it, but I don't know if we already have it. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll share it.
Thank you.
Sounds like a lot of good information in there.
Yeah, I like that the state's taking the initiative. Just circling back to our existing home energy score program for single-family homes, do we think we have pretty good rates of compliance?
I would say they're fair.
Right.
Yeah, fair. It does take an effort to enforce, and early on we did enforcement. I think we it's fair right now.
Yeah, okay.
And if you go onto the Green Building Registry, you can see sort of the growth. You can see the number of homes in Milwaukie that have scores. So, and I've certainly noticed since we adopted it. I think it was in the growth of those home energy scores in Milwaukie.
I remember seeing it a few times on listings when I was happening to look at listings on Zillow or whatever, but not a lot.
That's a good question. Do we have an existing rental inspection or registry program in Milwaukie?
No, I don't.
I want to say that again.
Well, some cities have a rental inspection program.
Yeah.
And a rental registry.
Yeah.
So then you have a really good idea of how much rental stock, is in your city, what the rental rates are and things like that. It's not horribly intrusive, I don't think, although, I haven't participated in one, so I don't know.
You're asking if we had one? Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
question. That's a good question.
Because I think, so the city of Gresham has one, and I think the cost annually is pretty minimal.
You mean the cost for the apartment owners or the cost for the city?
To register.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a requirement to register your rental property, but it seems like perhaps something like that would help with a number of our, number of things that we want to get at, but might also pay for, the score to be administered.
Do require rentals to get a business license. What I don't know, I'm looking at some people nervously, they might know, is if we gather in data on that as we are collecting those licenses. It's something that I'd actually like to look at cleaning up as we look into the business license program as part of our financial stability strategy, but we do require, if you are a landlord in the city, to get a business license.
Okay. Well, when I think about the intersection of climate and equity, the quality of housing that we have available in our city for rental stock comes up. And I think this might be a way that we could potentially partner with the county health department, because there are some other things that might come in. I haven't looked at the home energy score criteria for rental housing, but it seems like, you know, in addition to the type of insulation that you might have, I think, you know, that can sometimes contribute to whether you're having mold in your apartments and things like that. So this sounds really interesting and I'm excited. Thank you for putting the report in here. I'm excited to read it. And I had another question, but would you rather us just keep them to the end? It might be better that way because it goes back a couple.
Yeah. I have a question for Emma. How are we doing on time?
We are a little over, I think, what we had allotted for this item. We do because we're removing an item for tonight, but we wanted to move our council reports up. So I think
you're fine. I mean, we did start late too as well, so.
it's really the mayor's prerogative.
Well, I will move a bit faster. Questionable. So next update is on an exciting update. We were, along with 17 or 16 other cities in the region, we were awarded the Tualatin and Neighbors Charging Up Grant. That was from the U.S. Department of Transportation for $15 million. Woohoo.
Nice.
And this is for 500 level 2 networked charging points throughout the region. And so Milwaukie will receive at least 25 of these level 2 charger ports that will be placed in publicly accessible parking lots at affordable housing, multifamily affordable housing locations, as well as public facilities like libraries, parks, community centers, transit hubs, and schools. So our next steps of getting that implemented is establishing a stakeholder advisory group with the participating jurisdictions. Tualatin City is the lead and will handle the finances of the grant, and we will just be receiving the infrastructure. And we're joining a stakeholder group to design that implementation plan. We're developing a map of all the EV chargers throughout the city of Milwaukie that'll live on our city website. Those exist for different, if you're already a EV user, those exist in different ways. And this one will be for us to help identify the infrastructure gaps, a tool for community engagement, and help us in those site selections. And the third next step is engage priority communities to identify where are the existing gaps for charging infrastructure for these 2 locations that these chargers can go in. Next update is on our many great partnerships with PG&E. So we still have an ongoing partnership with them that's going strong. We have our on utility pole chargers. We have 15 installed and active right now. And the photo and the PowerPoint is what those look like. And so you can have that one charging point that's on the right-of-way street. And they have 3 new sites identified to install more. The city is working on outreach efforts to increase our use of these existing chargers. We have some that are really well used, and then we have a couple that we want to understand more what the neighborhoods need, and kind of gauging the propensity for adopting EV use in some of these areas. Another initiative we have with PGE is new. It's our curbside EV chargers, part of the municipal charging collaboration. And so the goal of this one will be to have around 5 to 7 level 2 curbside chargers, curbside charging ports. This is a bit of a tongue tie up here, tongue twister, near multifamily housing. And we'll start work with the PGE this fall to start identifying those site locations. And then more of a general update for our Milwaukie Electric Avenue. We're having some really exciting updates happening to it. We're getting 4 new ChargePoint DC fast chargers and 1 level 2 charger with 2 ports. So currently, the Electric Avenue is down for maintenance. Maintenance started on September 23rd, and it'll be down for about 6 to 8 weeks. But when we get, when it's back and running, the ability to charge so much faster is going to be great. I had a resident call and was like, "No, where's it going? That's the cheapest, best place to charge in the city." And so it'll be even faster, which is great.
Quick question on that, because that one was ran by Shell. Well, the payment system, it was a Shell recharge. And it was a subscription. There was a monthly subscription associated with that. What happens to the customers of that? They're not going to keep charging while that's down, right?
Well, the Electric Avenue charging system, PGE has other Electric Avenue charging stations throughout the region, and those customers can use their subscriptions at those locations.
We can't. I have a subscription. It's only for that location.
Really?
I can't use that because you can either pay monthly, which you can charge
Yeah.
for free. You just pay $25 a month. Or you can charge per kilowatt if you don't want a subscription. Right now, the only place that you can use that subscription is wherever the location is that you subscribe. That might be a Shell thing. I can't go to another
Okay.
location and use that.
I was not aware of that. I've haven't used the subscription in a long time, but I had used it several years ago and was able to use it at the different charging places.
I wonder if they changed it, because we used to be able to use it $25 a month, and you could use it anytime. And they
Right.
changed it to where $25 until the busy hours, then you have to pay an extra.
Let's look into that. So I don't know if you're being, if it's down, if you're being.
Yeah, because there was no notifications that were sent, at least I didn't get a notification. I'm assuming a lot of people didn't get notified that, what's going to happen to their subscriptions and if they're not going to be charged or not.
But it will be a faster charging experience.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Up to like
Yeah.
160
And ChargePoint, that's a good,
kW.
at least it's not Shell. Also fuel company.
I think we have a lot of EV infrastructure.
Yeah.
That we're anticipating getting built out in the city. If you actually go on PlugShare, one of the apps,
Yeah.
you can take a look at Milwaukie already, and you can see like we've got a lot of EV opportunities to charge. I mean, there's one, the Electric Avenues, the one DC fast charging. Most of the other ones are I think all the other ones are level 2 charging.
Yeah.
But they're around the
Yeah,
community.
yeah.
And
It's awesome. It's really awesome. Thank you.
Well, on the,
Before we go, I think the idea is great to make sure that we have there's a comprehensive, inventory of everything. But I'm not sure we have to do it, because I think that there's lots of apps out there that are probably keeping it pretty well up to date.
Well, we have.
And so I was just, okay,
I've had a conversation, we actually had an internal conversation about that, and I think part of our need is to help us understand where we have gaps, so using that, building that map to see where we have, but also helping people that may not be aware, that may not have gone up and purchased an EV, and they can take a look at the map. Look at it without having to download a PlugShare or a ChargePoint app. So it's a little bit of work on our end, but I think it will be helpful in terms of engagement and some more.
Kind of a marketing tool too.
Yeah, I do think, I will tell you, I find those available map, ChargeWay is the one I have on my phone, and it's wrong about 1 out of 3 times. It's wrong about where it's working, or whether it's working, or where it's located.
PlugShare's pretty good though.
So the map that we're putting together is not going to provide like charging availability. So it's just going to be charging location and type of charge.
Right.
So.
Right. But even that, I'm finding wrong in some of the apps. So, yeah, I think it's valuable to have our own.
well, I'll move through this one quickly because you all are a piece of this update, that the state legislators are preparing for the 2025 legislative session. And a transportation package is on their mind. And so over the summer, the Oregon Joint Committee on Transportation hosted a listening tour, and they had 12 stops around the state to gather input. And in the last week, we had one of the roadshow stops in Happy Valley. And it sounded like our council provided testimony at the Happy Valley roadshow, as well as staff submitted written testimony. And these were expressing our desire to see a really climate-forward transportation package in 2025 that prioritized climate resiliency, safety, and equity, and sustainable funding mechanisms. This aligns really well with the priorities that are emerging from our TSP process, especially some of the long-term funding needs that they're identifying. And so we'll continue to track different advocacy opportunities to uplift kind of those core pillars of what we would want out of a transportation package and how it could benefit our local community. Another update on our tree code. We are updating the public and private tree code. We're working with code compliance and planning staff. And some of these changes include kind of readability and clarification changes, removing redundancies, and better organization. We're also improving enforcement and the applicability of loopholes. Like we're consolidating our enforcement code, so it's not all spread out. We are kind of separating and making sure violations are clearly stated. We're adding consistent definitions and integrating as much as we can with the natural resource code. We are coming back to you all very soon in November to a work session to share those updates. And just wanted to take this also opportunity to plug Arbor Day coming up. The Arbor Day celebration and tree planting is happening on October 26th. Mayor Beatty is going to read our Arbor Day proclamation there as we plant our ceremonial tree. But it'll be at Water Tower Park, and we partner with Friends of Trees and get to plant a lot of trees throughout the community. And we already have, I think, over about 100 trees that folks have signed up to get planted.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we have a lot of trees. And the deadline is still coming. I think it's October, yeah, this Friday. So, we can get you a final number of how many trees will be planted. So that's exciting.
Do you know if within the tree availability, you have native trees available?
Of the trees being planted?
Yeah.
If you click through their link, it tells you.
Adding a tree list.
I did not do that personally, but yeah.
I want to say yes and don't want to say the wrong thing, so I'll check. Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I would expect they have some natives, but also some climate adaptive non-natives on there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And last slide before the end is looking forward. We have some really exciting things that we're building towards. In the late spring and early summer of 2025, we'll be conducting our next greenhouse gas inventory, and this is a kind of consistent timing from our previous ones, and this will be based on 2024 calendar year data. We'll also be receiving the updated tree canopy data from Metro's LiDAR scan that we have from 2019 and 2014. So this will continue to show where we're at and the changes that have been made. And then the next year, in the summer and fall of 2026, we're going to begin to update Milwaukee's climate action plan, which is really exciting based off of where we're at with what we're learning from the inventory, what's been successful with our tree urban forest program goals, and with significant more community engagement, where we go from here. And then we'll also have our city building feasibility study that has been budgeted for this time. Peter, do you want to add anything else on that?
Sure, I know, Mayor, you had a question about that, and I didn't fully communicate when we were going through the budgeting process, but we had worked with a consultant, PAE, to develop a scope of work back in '23, and it had been our intention to put that into this current biennium. At last, when we were revising and going over and trying to, make sure that we were being, financially responsible with what we had, we that feasibility study to the next biennium. So it would be, we'd have funding available July of '26. And I think with the number that we had there was about $45,000. It's a pretty technical study that needs to be done. It's not something that, when we looked at it, that we could do really internally. There's a lot of, mechanical and electrical equipment that we really need to have, mechanical engineers really sort of look at and take a look at that, and also integrate any electrical needs that we might have with PG&E, the upgrades that need to be done to feed those buildings. But, we were looking at, the buildings that we were looking at as part of the scope of work would be, the City Hall here, the Public Safety Building, our Hardy campus, the Milwaukie Center, Johnson Creek, that full campus there, which also includes the front building, the Public Works Operation Building, and then the pole barns and the shops there. So there's a lot of buildings there involved. So that's where that is.
So I was a little disappointed to see it pushed back so far, but I guess the question I have is, maybe it's not a big deal if we aren't anticipating any of our systems crashing between now and then, needing to do major upgrades or major, band-aiding of any of the systems that might be using methane.
Yeah, we don't anticipate that happening.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
we have a little bit of time to put that study together.
So I know I went much over my allotted time, and I know there might still be a few other questions.
I'll defer to Councilor Anderson because I don't think he's been very vocal.
Oh, yeah.
Understandably, but if you have questions.
Councilor Anderson?
I don't think we need to dive into it too much today, but I would just be interested to learn more about the scope and the timeline for the 26 revision of the climate action plan. But again, I think we can save that question for another time. And I'll pass it back to Councilor Stavenford if you've got one today.
Hope you feel better. So I think my biggest question really is around integrating climate and equity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to follow up after the meeting or in a separate conversation, but I think that the intersectionality of climate and environmental justice is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if there are adaptations that maybe we've already explored or that we might come into before the update of the climate action plan,
Mm-hmm.
and how that partnership with Gabriella is going to inform that.
Yeah. I'll probably defer till our update because we're kind of still going through each of our priorities of like, okay, where does this intersect, to identify those areas that we can. And we are, it's exciting to hear you say that. I think I'm excited to bridge that with the update of the climate action plan to really embed it much more into those co-benefits, the adaptations, and also the implementation. I think some of our goals are still really wonderful, and getting more into that specific implementation guide can be a very helpful tool. And so if it's kind of creating a climate equity implementation guide alongside an updated climate action plan, Gabriela and I have started talking about what that might look like, or if it is just embedded into those goals. And I hear you saying also, what do we do before that as well? So,
Yeah, I think the looking at it like that is, I think, I certainly have recognized for a long time that, when we developed our climate action plan committee that we put together, equity was not at the forefront of that plan. And I think we recognize that that's certainly a weakness of it. And that's part of the reason why I brought Katie on board. Katie has a passion for that. That was really evident throughout the, going through the recruitment process. Katie will have a lot to add, and I already see how, Katie's weaving equity through all the different things that we're doing in natural resources and urban forestry and stormwater quality and all these things. So it's important.
It's good that you bring that lens, and not to say that it wasn't there in the first place. That's not at all what I mean, but sometimes having that really intentional way of looking at everything through a lens that really grounds equity allows you to think about the communities that are most impacted when we have a climate disaster, or how our systems are set up to serve those that have been marginalized from traditional environmentalism. So again, welcome. I know we've already said that before, but it's just really exciting that you're prioritizing this conversation, and Gabriela's amazing. So to have that dynamic duo is really incredible.
I would just, I would second all of that, but I would also add that I've been talking with Joseph about having Leslie King. You guys will remember that she came to talk to us briefly in connection with the Kellogg Dam project, but as I've seen her aboard more tours of Kellogg Dam, I realized what a great resource she is on that intersections of climate and equity. And so I'm exploring how to bring her back, to whether it's for a conversation at one of our meetings or whether it's for a public conversation like at the library or something. She's expressed her interest in coming back, and so I'm hoping we'll have that happen sometime this fall or winter. I did want to ask one thing that I didn't see in this, which is the green tariff. So what's happening with the green tariff?
We're having some hard conversations. We've had some hard conversations before Katie joined. PGE is finding it to be a challenge to provide a tariff that would be affordable with a new build. When you recognizing that they have some mandated requirements from the state that they have to meet, and they have to go out and build that there's a cost associated with that, and a demand that impacts the supply of energy. And Mayor Gamba, the former mayor, one of his big things is also he's been talking about like transmission, availability of transmission. So when we're looking for a product that's related to new energy, a new build somewhere, it starts to get really expensive when you factor in those the ability to transmit the energy here, and this demand placed on utilities by the state, not just here but in other places, to meet these renewable goals. So there's sort of like an increase in cost to provide some of those solar and wind energy components. One thing that we're still looking at is that we've had some discussions about was instead of a new build, an opt-out renewable based tariff that could provide that would, be based on existing builds. So that's an opportunity and that would be more affordable. Katie and I haven't had a conversation yet with PG, but I think Emma and I had met with Julie and a couple of other folks from PGE, maybe in July, and talked to them about it. So that's sort of where we are.
Okay, so they have been in a kind of a holding pattern for a while, so that continues.
Yeah.
Appreciate the update. I guess we should move on, because, we do have at least one more thing. Thank you very much. Nice job for your first. Okay, so then I invite Joseph, our acting assistant city manager, up to talk about Milwaukie Bay Park parking, which we get regular, at least a couple of letters every year about.
Happy people. Happy people letters?
Not generally happy people.
What?
Unfortunately,
Oh my
happy people rarely write us letters.
That's true.
Once in a great while.
That's true. For all those watching out there, write a good, happy letter.
Yeah.
Sending in haikus.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah, Joseph Brilio, Acting Assistant City Manager, Community Development Director. I'm here to provide a quick update on Milwaukie Bay Park parking, where we left it, where it's going, where it's been, and where it's going. And so with that, I'll just jump right in. There's not a ton to update, but I think it's good to at least let you all know where we are and what's happening in downtown in general. So just by way of background for those, I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but the parking total when it comes to trailer spaces and vehicle spaces is up on the board, and that includes north and south lot, the north and south lot. 20 trailer spaces, 1 ADA, 13 vehicle spaces, 3 of those are ADA accessible. North lot, that's how it's broken up by lot. And where did we leave it last time? So back in March, as you might remember, the city manager at the time, Ann Ober, brought an update that her and I had both had a conversation with the Marine Board about some options and asking for some thoughts from you all about where we should go or what type of things we should be looking into. And so this was the same night as the Greenway discussion, which took up about 3 hours. And so this was at the very end of that conversation. So you might not remember, I guess is the point here. But within that conversation, at the very end, we talked about a few things. Paid parking would be an option over there if we wanted to go down that route. The Marine Board was okay with that. There was some idea of that we shouldn't really consider that fully until we know where we're at with Milwaukie Bay Park. But as part of that conversation, there was also, let's talk to Gladstone and get some data on how their paid parking program has gone. I haven't done that in all honesty. I haven't reached out to Gladstone. We had some changes obviously happen in April. And that night was one of those where we put a lot of our engineering resources that were left in capacity over to 23rd Avenue. And so this has kind of been left in the dust a little bit. And then finally, in that last conversation was some interest in reconfiguring the south parking lot, which is the Marine Board was open to. And so that was going to be the other task of talking to engineering, was getting some estimates, some design ideas and what that would encompass. But to give you some sense of really what we were looking at, that's the south parking lot on the right. And there's trailer parking there. There's 5 spots to the south, but it was really about cutting up the trailer parking to allow for seasonal additional vehicle parking. Roughly 8 to 10 vehicle parking spaces in addition to what you see there. Hasn't been a priority, like quite frankly, it just hasn't been a priority, and happy to talk through it as putting money towards it. But then there's also this conversation we continue to have about Milwaukie Bay Park and what we're going to do. And having this as a standalone project seems a bit, the cost benefit analysis from my standpoint doesn't seem to be strong. but you can correct me if I'm wrong. And so here's what I'm pitching to you all as an idea to help us get somewhere when it comes to parking down there and in downtown. So signage is pretty bad down there. And that's, I think, a big part of why people get tickets is they don't fully understand where they can park and what options are available. So I do think that there is the ability to add additional wayfinding signs to have people that when this parking lot is full, at least for vehicles that don't have a trailer, that there's other options across the street that are free if they want to utilize the park. That doesn't solve the issue around kayaks and all that, I understand. But at least for additional park use for the Willamette River and for the Milwaukie Bay Park, having people understand that there's more parking than just these two options. And I think what is important to know in this conversation too is what's currently happening in the traffic regulation right now, which is currently in process, so it's being circulated among the different departments. But this is how downtown parking is currently being provided. As you can see, there's only really 38 spaces for those people that come downtown and just want to like go to the store, go to a store. Otherwise, everything else is permit or city employees or currently being used partially used for construction staging. A lot of it's underutilized all day.
This doesn't include the new parking lot,
Doesn't include the new parking lot, yes.
which is publicly available.
True, yes. So what we are moving towards is basically a reflection of what's across the street right now, which is 2-hour parking or by permit. So that opens up a lot more parking throughout downtown, even closer to Milwaukie Bay Park, and gives options where there once wasn't. As you can see, there we're also going to be including, hopefully, Mayor, this makes you happy because I know you've said it several times since I've been here. We're also adding this signage to actually point out that there's public parking. Signage is also pretty bad. So here's what's going on downtown parking, and then with hopefully some additional wayfinding signage over Milwaukie Bay Park. That's kind of the, I don't want to say Band-Aid, but it's just kind of what I'm currently in the midst of. Happy to take feedback, questions, anything else? And if there's anything that you would like to add, Emma.
That's perfect.
I love the simplification. I mean, so the employees just get a permit, that's part of it. So they're just treated like other permit parking. I love the simplification, it makes for far less confusion.
Yeah, I do echo these are general public parking issues. Those are all good steps. I'm going to circle back to Big Park and so I will confess I got this ball rolling. And the issue about the parking lot over there is that the parking lot was built with money from the State Marine Board.
Right.
Okay, and so that comes from the registration of boats, right? And so that's their constituency.
Right.
And so what we found out in this process is that you didn't have to register kayaks. So that's a additional constituency for the Marine Board. So if you look at it like that, we're not providing access to a constituency of the Marine Board. And in the discussions, as I heard from Ann has, they were open to doing more things like that. So I just think that, the folks who have kayaks should have some access closer to the ramp, because it's just kind of awkward to go unload your kayak and put it down by the pier and then go park your car across the 99. And so that was the impetus for my interest in the parking issue.
Yeah, that's helpful. And yeah, you're right. And what you're remembering, that was part of what Ann brought back was that.
And I agree, this is not on a hot burner. Just don't want to lose something.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Council President.
I was not at that March meeting, so I'm playing a little bit of catch up, but when that kayak element was brought up, did we talk about what the feasibility of that could look like? So if you register your kayak, because with a boat trailer, you know there's a boat trailer. If you have a kayak and you're in the water with your kayak, you might not know that person had a kayak. So did we talk at all with them about?
There was a lot of discussion. I don't want to go into that discussion because there's 20 different ways you can go.
Okay.
It's an issue, it's a problem, but it can be solved.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Can you clarify what open to seasonal reconfiguration means? Seasonal implies that it
Yeah,
would just be for the non-summer months.
right. So that's what I recall our conversation with the Marine Board being.
Outside the salmon run.
Yeah, exactly. And part of that, the reconfiguration, they're open to reconfiguration. This is what I remember back in March, February. Open to reconfiguration, but however, they would also be part of the approval process for that reconfiguration. So it still requires collaboration because, yes, we have that like 45-year grant agreement with them, unfortunately. But they have been open to at least hearing our concerns and working with us. How we chop that up and what it ends up being and at the end is still a bit of a,
Counselor Anderson has his hand raised, so let's let him chime in here.
sure.
Thank you, Mayor Beatty. Just a quick question. I almost hate to ask this, but if we were to charge for parking in Milwaukie Bay Park for every resident who uses it, would that violate any potential IGA that we had signed with North Clackamas? I know these IGAs are in flux, but I know that one of the provisions was free and open use for current NCPRD residents, and that's something that I think about in our long-term plans for Milwaukie Bay Park, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I know the Marine Board is okay with it. I don't know the full extent of what NCPRD, that side of things are, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we'd have to look into that.
Yep.
Yeah,
part of
we'd
it.
have to explore that for sure. I mean, as
Good
long as
question.
we're not treating any, we're not favoring Milwaukee residents,
Right.
That's actually what they do in Gladstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do
Is
that.
that it? Okay.
We could do that. We could offer every resident a pass, a free pass. That is something we've talked about with Marine Board again. That would be okay.
This is actually, my question is, in regards to the permit, just who would be eligible? Like who's eligible right now to buy a permit for parking?
Anybody. I mean, well, sorry, for the downtown parking?
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
it's like, I know,
it's employees of employers downtown right now. It's a primary function. And since COVID, that's changed quite a bit. It has been.
yeah, and that's what I was I mean, I know this, just to drop this in the hat, that, you got a lot of people working from home that live downtown, and maybe
Yeah.
you could open that up to people who live in downtown
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, I'm with Councilor Massey on this, just to, in terms of what we were discussing and along those lines. And I mean, we're gonna have to work with the Marine Board either way, but I don't know if maybe that purpose, the 20 different ways is probably the best and easiest, most effective for
Yeah.
now, in terms of, as opposed to trying to reconfigure the building, 8 more spaces at the moment.
Right. And there's also that layer of any new developments on the construction of additional
Yeah.
amenities.
We
Yeah.
got the tree canopy stuff, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wonder if there's not a simple, at least interim fix, which is re-signing those 8. I mean, first off, there's 8 up there or whatever, 8 trailer spaces, 6. 1 or 2 of them get used with the boat, with the
Yeah,
ramp.
6. Yeah.
That's where they store the dock in the winter. And I guess keeping track of what's the season Marine Board means, I guess is another factor. But I mean, maybe there's just more permissive signage up there about not ticketing non-trailer.
Well, what I do recall is that they didn't want any change to the north lot, if that's what you're speaking to.
No, I'm
Yeah.
speaking to
Oh,
the
you're-
south
Okay,
lot.
okay.
I'm speaking to
Okay.
the south lot,
Sorry.
but rather than getting into rebuilding it
Oh,
all
gotcha.
and stuff and spending infrastructure dollars before we know what's happening with the park, is that a
Yeah,
potential that creates maybe 4 new
Yeah, yeah.
spaces? It's not a lot.
but it's,
I will also say those, I rarely see that. That picture has cars in the ADA spaces or in one of them, but I rarely see cars.
yeah, also has a car in the trailer spot, which is great too. I'd be happy to ask the Marine Board about can we just change the signage right now without reconfiguring, and seeing, at least get a couple more spots down there.
And ask them about a seasonal change. So the
Yes.
signage would say
Yes.
between the months of X and X, all vehicles.
All vehicles.
I think if we're going to reach out to them to ask about that, we might as well ask about kayaks too.
Okay.
Would that pertain just to the south lot or for both?
Just the south lot. That's the only lot they've been open to having different conversations about. Yeah.
Yeah, we can confirm the kayaks, but my recollection is it was discussed.
Sure. I guess I mean, more of the how. So if,
Oh, okay.
hey,
Like a permit.
Right.
if kayaks are, so what can the Marine Board give a kayak register
Right.
that puts on the car so
window.
that Carrie won't ticket them if
Yeah.
they're parked in that spot?
Yeah, because the license goes on the
Kayak.
kayak itself, right? Yeah.
It's crying out for a cool bumper sticker.
Yeah.
I yak in the,
A yak in the Met.
I guess seasonal you wouldn't be able to park there, or maybe seasonal you'd have to pay for parking. Would they be open to that or no?
It's more, I would say probably more administrative side of things, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Can I ask a question about the other parking lots?
Yes.
So, actually, there are 4-hour public spaces that are, I think 18, and then maybe it says 20 under there.
Yes.
And then in the reconfigured graphic that you showed, they're all 2-hour spaces.
Yeah.
So, I guess I'm wondering, what is the average 4-hour user? Would that create an unintentional hardship for them? Or if they need to move spaces, does that mean they have to move to another lot? Or another place within that lot?
It would be a whole nother lot.
We have a block.
Yeah, block rule. So it's a good question. I would say that those folks are limited already they can't even use it as pretty much as it is unless they have a permit. I mean, they can still use some of the 4-hour, I guess is what I'm saying is, let me back up. There's a couple things. First of all, in our Rick Williams parking study, he said we needed more 2-hour parking than anything. And that 4-hour was too long. I do imagine there are probably some residents that do use 4-hour parking, primarily on the street, not so much in the lots, and that do use the block rule every 4 hours change. That's definitely, I've heard that happen.
Oh, there's employees doing that.
Yeah, there's employees as well. So this would be an encouragement to get people either to get a permit so they don't have to do that all day. And then, just keep it simple across the board.
Then,
It's a good question though.
So I understand that we have a block rule. I don't know that is clear when you're in a parking lot like this. So it might be helpful if we're putting new signage in, that there be a clarification that if you're staying longer than 2 hours downtown, that you actually need to move to a different lot, not a different space I think people regularly understand that when it comes to the block face,
Yeah.
not in a parking lot.
Yeah, I don't know that many people understand what block rule means. I think that's a good thought. I don't think that's common.
I agree.
Yeah. It's a point well taken.
I do think, I'm sure there are businesses that are gonna come tell us that they have, like hairdressers, if I'm giving a perm or I'm doing this or that, it takes 3 hours, I think we will hear from some businesses about the need for longer spaces in some areas, and we maybe need to think about that, but I do love the simplicity of this, and I do love the turnover that it requires, because, I mean, we're gonna have a brew pub, and we're gonna have a food cart here, pod here, and sort of encouraging turnover and making it less appealing for people who are just trying to game, not buying a permit, I think is a good outcome of this.
Yeah, and if it does create a hardship, I think we could start, the other conversation or the next conversation could be about those permit fees and what those,
I wonder if there might be some businesses who would want to, I don't know how much the permit is, but what if the hairdresser has a permit? And then that's something that if you have someone coming in for a long appointment, you give them that temporary permit with the business name on it, and they put that on their dash when they're coming in.
yeah. I don't know how it's enforced. I think
That
it
could
sounds,
work.
it sounds, like you
And
might
there
have found
could be,
a hack.
if you look at the lot that's, that we got complaints about, the lot down next to Axle Tree,
Yeah,
they do have like 3 spaces that
the
are
Sapphire lot.
the Sapphire
Yeah.
lot. They have a few spaces that are paid for by the dentists, right? That's in Axle Tree,
Yeah.
and it's for their patients, and they're marked for that.
Right.
And so maybe we consider something like that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Well, and the idea, I mean, I like where this conversation is going, and I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea of having marked spaces. However, with a permit that just goes on the dash, then you're not taking up that whole space the whole day.
Okay.
And, you know, if they find a spot in either of those lots, then that works.
Yeah.
Versus having, having a business, have 2 vacant spots all day because they just have short appointments or something like that. If there's a way to get it to be something that works for parking enforcement, then that's cool.
And Joseph, I should know this, but all of our on-street parking is 2 hour as well.
No, it's 4 hour right
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
So there is some
Some is 2 hour.
longer term spaces within the downtown area that's just not within our lots.
I mean, at least historically, it's tended to be at either end of downtown, right? It's down by the
South
post
end.
office, and it's right here,
Okay.
next to this building, and I guess maybe further north.
So we can get creative or prepare to see perms running down the street, right?
And then Joseph, on the super cool snazzy signs, can you tell us kind of where all those are going to be installed?
Shoot, I shouldn't have.
I love
I had that.
pieces.
I had that photo too. Probably easier if I just do this. So we'll have one on the, kind of where Will's face is. Right up here, right on the entrance of these 2. And then also at this entrance,
Okay,
at this entrance, and at this entrance.
that's great.
Awesome.
And we'll also have one across the street.
That is awesome.
As you can see, even from this, there's quite a few private lots that I'm going to, over time, be having conversations similar to the one across the street. I don't know how well those are utilized during the day, like by their employees or not. I also think going this route will hopefully encourage, if they do have employees, that's dark horse right there, that their employees use their lot, not elsewhere too. But if they're not using it, then there's also maybe the potential of us to continue the march.
Nice work. Okay. So I just want to recap to make sure I know what our marching orders are. We will re-engage the Marine Board. We're going to ask about seasonal signage for the south lot, and we're going to ask about a cool kayak bumper sticker that would allow kayakers to park in spaces. And then as we roll out this awesome simplification improvement, we'll keep you posted on if we start hearing about, calls for needing longer parking. And if so, I think there's a pretty simple, we can produce a temporary permit that we could allow businesses to procure.
What is the timeline? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just wondering what the timeline is for
Yeah, good
putting
question.
up the signage and when we see these changes and when we might need to be speaking with folks.
So my biggest worry was making sure we did a change before Freem and Keeper opened, which is obviously still quite a time, but still till next spring, yeah. So we have plenty of time to encourage and talk about it, at least with the business owners downtown and also just through the pilot. But I imagine I would like to get this changed by the end of the year, quite frankly, as we go into the winter months. And then hopefully people get used to it. It's kind of like a slow rollout during kind of the darker times.
And as to Councilor Kosrabani's point about residents, I'm kind of torn on that one, and I'd like to have a separate conversation on that.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some data about permit uptake, and especially how this changes permit uptake. So I'd kind of like to defer that conversation for.
We can definitely defer that and bring that back. It's also very connected to the financial strategy too.
Yeah,
Because
right.
it's not a large revenue producer by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a revenue
I
producer.
actually wanted to talk about that too. Employees having to pay for that sucks to have to pay to go to work.
Yeah.
It's just seems so.
Talk about it.
Well, I mean, some of the employers pay for
That'd be
it.
rough, yeah.
I mean, Dark Horse was buying theirs pre-COVID anyway.
Yeah, and just the ones that don't,
yeah.
because that's even great, 'cause it's even smaller pool, so that might be even, that's a hit to the.
Yeah, I hear you there.
Okay, any more on this? Okay,
That's it for me.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 40 minutes left. And we're doing council reports, which means we'll have a super short meeting tonight. We don't have a ton on our agenda. You might catch the end of that debate. I want to talk about parks as part of council reports, but I'd rather have everybody do other council reports first and save the parks for last. So what do people have by way of council reports?
I'll be real quick. The Watershed Council met on September 18th, and we adopted the strategic plan. But I'm going to punt because all my notes refer to pages in the strategic plan, and it's not posted yet. So, I'm going to ask the forgiveness, and I'll come back to the next meeting when I can cross-reference.
Thank you.
I don't have any council reports. I'll have a CAB meeting tomorrow morning. But I did want to just say that I'm sure you all got an email from Mr. Andy Fisher, the Business Alliance for downtown Milwaukee, that they're restarting. If you haven't already met with them, I know a couple of us have, I would highly suggest meeting with them in that group. There's a lot of good that they absolutely love what we're doing with Milwaukie, and they want to help and be a part of doing all this, and they're putting plans together to do stuff. They're a serious group of downtown business owners that I think it would be great if each of us got an opportunity to meet with that group, or even invite them to a council meeting.
Yeah, we can look at that for a future agenda. We have some new business owners. We could be doing a sort of business owner introduction like we've done before, and maybe couple that with that like
Yeah.
later in the year. Yeah, I'll talk with them about trying to do that. Nothing else? Okay.
No.
Counselor Savendor?
The C4 Metro Subcommittee met on September 18th, and we received updates on the Joint Policy Advisory Committee, the JPAC, MPAC, it's a lot of PACs. The MPAC is the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, MTAC, which is their Technical Advisory Committee, and the meeting summary is not posted as of yet, but I'll look for that and I'll route it around to council when it is.
Sweet.
And so nothing in particular that bears discussion?
Not lengthy discussion. I mean, they walked through the regional flexible fund allocation and timeline. They talked a lot about the transportation package. And so, we had representation at that roundtable, and I'm sure, I think maybe that's part of reports that we'll hear tonight, if not future conversations. They talked about, well, with regard to the MPAC, they've been going through the urban growth process, and there's only one application, which is Sherwood for that. So there was some conversation just about, what the plans looked like there. I would say it was fairly benign. No presentations beyond updates from those standing committees.
Well, I was going to go to Counselor Anderson, but I did want to circle, well, go ahead, Counselor Anderson. Any council reports?
Nope. I can just keep it really quick. In terms of my 2 policy lanes, I'm going to start by thanking y'all and city staff for delaying the hubs conversation tonight. Really looking forward to that on November 5th. In terms of transportation, like Councilor Stavendor was alluding to, we just wrapped up our the Transportation Roadshow, where the Joint Committee on Transportation was touring around the state, hearing community input, and they're moving on to a series of work groups to really hammer out the components of the package. And so those work groups will now be the interesting thing to track. And I think we might hear from Mayor Beatty, who was our representative there at the roadshow a little bit later tonight about what happened there. The other transportation update I have for y'all is around the TSP. We had a meeting last Saturday, I believe, where we did a needs analysis where some neighborhood volunteers went around to scope out kind of the existing conditions on some of our roads. And that work will be rolled up into our existing mapping and data that we use to determine where our greatest needs are as a city.
Great. Well, since you both referenced Transportation Roadshow, I'll go ahead and follow up on that, which is I sent council some notes on that, but it was an interesting meeting, a big table of people. It was created to be the legislators and the Oregon Transportation Commission listening to cities and representatives of transit agencies, representatives of trucking agencies, representatives of community groups, people representing the community of people with disabilities, AARP, et cetera. So they didn't reveal a lot to us about what anybody's thinking is. I think Counselor Anderson has I talked to him ahead of it, and I think he has a pretty good handle because in his day job, he's sort of been involved in monitoring a lot of this. I think there were some general principles of, and Representative McLean, who's the co-chair of the Joint Committee, said in the outset, multimodal. We're not just talking about roads. Safety, focus, and sort of the idea that it's about creating a resilient, durable revenue stream, which probably means not all reliant on the gas tax or any one source, but having some multiple sources. The lift is pretty significant. I put in a pitch for that the 50-30-20 split was important to us. I was a little surprised by how little that was spoken about, and I don't know if that means it's a given that they're going to keep doing that, or other cities have given up. I'm not quite sure. But I think my takeaways were if they just did a gas tax, one of the senators said it would have to be like $1, almost $2 gas tax increase, which there pretty clearly is no appetite for. So I think we may see some mix of funding sources, and I have no crystal ball for predicting what that is, but it is a conversation we will need to follow in the months ahead. It does sound like, the vehicle miles traveled or road use fee idea is certainly on the table. It may be something that gets phased in different classes of vehicles, like delivery vehicles first, et cetera. But again, not, this meeting was not much about telling us what they're thinking. It was more about us telling them what was important to us. You look like you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. Some of the C4 meetings, we've talked about how Clackamas County is prepared to advocate for the Sunrise Corridor. And they had asked C4 partners who were there to speak about that. And so did that come up?
No, and Paul Salvis was there. He did not say anything about, I mean, there might have been a passing reference, maybe one passing reference to Sunrise Corridor, but I was expecting to hear that.
Yeah.
And I was not hearing it, but nobody was really talking specific projects, yeah, nobody was really talking specific projects, but I do know that I have read that that's the big priority in the C4 stuff you've given us before. And that's something I'd like to talk about at some point in time. Because they're rolling out, the county is rolling out a big online survey, if people don't know. I haven't done it yet. I did pick up the little QR code so that I can go on and have a look at it and see what it is exactly they're talking. I know you're in one of their advisory groups, so it might be good to have that, a little more fulsome conversation on that at some point before we get to the actual ask, because there was not any kind of a focus on that at the roadshow. There were a few remarks about tolling. I do think tolling is probably, tolling or congestion pricing is still on the table, but hard to know if they will go there or not. Any other questions? Okay. I did want to circle back to, you're going to speak on Friday at Clackamas Service Center, and you had shared with us the map that shows some schools with a few residents in Milwaukie, but largely outside Milwaukie. And so I just wanted to kind of.
Are you referring to the map that the city put together? Okay. So my understanding of that map is that it shows schools that serve Milwaukie students. And I found that map after our discussion a couple of weeks prior around students from Island Station that go to Oak Grove Elementary.
Right.
So that prompted digging into the number of Milwaukie students that go to that school. That then led me to thinking about Lot Whitcomb, because it's a similar configuration where the school is located outside of the city, just like Oak Grove. And Milwaukie students attend, just like Oak Grove. So when I spoke with the McKinney-Vento team at the school district, and this was a few weeks ago, they indicated that the school district's social workers are actively involved in both of those schools. When I spoke with the Clackamas Service Center about those two schools particularly, they said that they also provide additional services to those two schools. They have nutrition services that they set up there. I believe it's every Thursday.
Like food box distribution?
Well, yeah, they're not already built, the food boxes. It's more of a selection, and you can choose what is right for your family. So they have that set up. Both groups, both teams said that it would be a great service if we were able to help those schools. So my recommendation at this point is to include the schools that are located in the city of Milwaukie and those two schools that are technically outside of the city. but serve Milwaukee students. And I appreciate the mayor bringing that to my attention. Yeah, thank you.
So I looked at the map, which I thought was really interesting, and, with Oak Grove Elementary, we don't see the non-Milwaukie, the full extent of the non-Milwaukie Oak Grove Elementary coverage. It's hard to know how many kids did you get actual numbers from talking to McKinney-Vento about how many Milwaukie kids go to? Okay. With that one, that happens to be where I live, so I knew the kids went to Oak Grove. With Whitcomb, it looks like it's only like one street or something that's in Milwaukie. I guess, my concern is, I hear what you said before about the sort of difficulty of a counselor or a teacher in a school giving, helping one kid get resources that another kid in the same class can't get. And I feel like and I've talked with Emma a little bit about this. I feel like this, especially what we heard last meeting from Nikki Storm about the Lot Whitcomb population in particular, but it probably applies fairly well to Oak Grove too, is the percentage of kids on free and reduced price lunch, percentage of kids in families that have financial needs. We're really, we're probably gonna be addressing, half again as many kids as are in the city of Milwaukee, half again as many families as are in the city of Milwaukee. And I think it's great to get them the services, but I sort of feel like we should circle back with the county and say, hey, the way these lines break up, we think the county should put more money into Clackamas Service Center to serve these populations.
Well, so the topic of this being a pilot program has definitely been a theme through the conversations that we've had over the last several months. It's a 2-year pilot. We're the only city that applied for a program like this. Although I think that other cities may have applied had they realized, like, hey, you could do something like this. Which makes me feel like what we learned through this pilot gives us the ability to make that case to the county and to other cities. It's been, this afternoon or this morning, I met with the team from the school district and the Clackamas Service Center, and they have complementary processes, but they don't work together. And so through this, we've been able to improve the way that they connect with each other and they share resources. They each have their own referral form. So they were able to be familiar with that process and be able to talk families through one or the other's form. So I see a lot of benefit out of this being a pilot that hopefully the county would want to replicate. I have no problem advocating for additional funding to help, families and students to maintain their stability in schools. But I don't feel comfortable at this point making a change to remove Whitcomb from the plan. But I'm certainly happy to start the advocacy, as soon as we get out of here.
The one thing I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just one thing I shared with the mayor when we discussed this yesterday, and I appreciate everything you just said, Councilor Stavengard, is the process of accessing these funds with the county through the city-led initiatives. It's an interesting model because this one, we were the champion of the ask. You are the champion of the ask. We were the vector through which, but the money is not coming to the city of Milwaukee. It's really the county providing the funds to the Clackamas Service Center. And I just think it provides kind of an interesting thing to think about. Then should it be limited to just geographic boundaries, or is it really about the need? And so I appreciate what you're saying about we'll learn a lot through the pilot, but I do, I think there is also, to the mayor's point, a good talking point to say, this shouldn't be, even though these are called city-led initiatives, if what we are serving is beyond the city's population, the funding should probably be commensurate with that need and that demand, rather than just kind of an arbitrary, we send in the application, so it's our borders. And I think that you're right, that, learning a lot for these 2 years and pushing for more.
Yeah, or even pushing for more sooner. I mean, I think, the county housing staff, I mean, you've made the point about other cities in that, but of course, these areas are not other cities, they're unincorporated.
Right.
And so who is looking out for them? And I know the county housing staff is, trying to serve everybody, but they don't have a city council advocating for them. And so I do think we probably need to be running that sort of up the flagpole more of the, the need in the areas.
Well, I mean, we received an inquiry from, there was the proposed village structure that there, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the organization that wanted to build that up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right outside of Milwaukie, yeah.
And, they put together a proposal, but because it wasn't submitted by a city, they weren't selected. So I think it does really, I mean, it's something that I think that the housing team is aware of. We should definitely use this as another example. I do think that we have a really unique situation in that both the Oak Grove area and the unincorporated urban pockets, toward the town center, those are in our UGMA. So, I see this as, not just stabilizing, residents of the future, but maybe actual residents of the future. So I guess I see this as very fluid. And I don't know if that is troublesome to my peers here. But I think you are correct that there's no one is championing a strategy for families that are living in unincorporated.
Yeah. So I do, I guess I'll be curious to see, I'm not proposing changing what you set up. Oh, well, Counselor Anderson, I see your hand up. I'm just going to finish this thought. I'm not proposing changing what you've set up, but I do think it becomes incumbent because we have this 30 to 50% more people being served it becomes incumbent on us to be monitoring more regularly how far the money's going. Our needs not being met with the rent assistance and stuff like that.
So tell me a little bit more about what you mean when you say monitoring regularly.
Well, I mean, just having regular reporting. I don't know how often they plan to report, if it's quarterly or, I would hate to wait a whole year to get reporting on, we had to turn this many people away, or, we had, we ran out of money at month 4, or,
Sure.
The
contract is between Clackamas County and the Clackamas Service Center. So the reporting is really set up, I would assume quarterly to the county. But the more real-time conversation that we're having is that, this partner group has been meeting every week for months. So that's worked through a lot of the challenges bureaucratically and system challenges, things that we didn't really anticipate, but we've been able to problem solve in real time, such as, when someone calls the CHA line, the Coordinated Housing Access Line, now they would be able to say, I live in the city of Milwaukie, or my child goes to school in these schools, and I've heard about this Milwaukie Heart program. I need to find out about getting some help through this program. The CHA team is going to be cross-trained on knowing the eligibility for this program. And then they have a person on their team that's going to take all of those referrals and be the main conduit with one main person at the Clackamas Service Center. And that's because the Clackamas Service Center also offers a variety of housing supports through other grants and other contracts that they have. So there might be a situation where someone comes in through this Milwaukie Heart door, but they're actually able to get assistance from other resources. So I think I guess if what I'm hearing from you is that what you're looking for are regular reports from me.
Oh, I don't know if they're from you or they're from, they're a report that's generated for the county and just shared with us or whatever. But something that tells, I guess my worry is, are we leaving Milwaukie residents out? Are we cutting some Milwaukie residents out because we've made the pools so big that the funds don't reach everybody? So I want to just know when the funds are running out, that kind of thing.
Yeah, let me think about that a little bit. Actually, I'm sorry. We were supposed to just finish that sentence and then, let me think about that for a little bit, Mayor.
Okay, Councilor Anderson.
Hey, I'm happy to wait. I know I'm not there. My quick comment, Mayor Beatty, I appreciate your concerns. You sent a resource that I've referred to many times. The DAC agenda packet from 710 has a really helpful map of the community needs and the social vulnerability module of Milwaukie and the surrounding area. And the reason I point to that is some of the areas with the highest needs that exist within our city boundaries are those 2 or 3 blocks that are identified or that go to a different school that's not a Milwaukie-based school. And so part of, I think, I absolutely hear your concern about making sure all Milwaukie residents have access to this program. But I also am seeing in this module that some of the Milwaukie students who might be in most need of this program exist outside of a Milwaukie-based school. And so for the folks who go to Oak Grove Elementary and Lot Whitcomb, I think they're certainly, I have faith in Councilor Staffen George to report back and continue to track that. And boy, is she talented at advocating for funds going forward. But I think there's also a need to make sure that we're not preemptively cutting off these high needs areas just because they don't have a school that exists within our city boundaries.
Well, I guess that's a philosophical question we can debate another day. I mean, my worry is that this was a Milwaukie ask, and I just want to make sure Milwaukie families are covered. But I don't think we need to discuss it further at this point. I just think we need to monitor it as it goes forward. And when do they expect to start?
The program is being announced officially on Friday with the grand opening of the Clackamas Service Center Annex.
And all the IGAs are done and they're all, oh no, okay.
No, I guess it's public information one way or another. So the contract has not yet been finalized from Clackamas County to the Clackamas Service Center. We do anticipate that it will be finalized very soon. We have seen a draft of that. That's a conversation between Clackamas County and the Clackamas Service Center. Although both partners have been very gracious in including me as our representative or our author, I guess, in updates on that. Every week we have been getting an update from the contracts team, who is also trying to put together contracts and IGAs for every other city program that some of ours included. And the delays have been pretty considerable. Although, I would say on a county contracting timeline, starting something in October is not uncommon. It's just unfortunate. My understanding is that there's also an IGA looping in the city. I have not seen that IGA. I think that that's communicated with Emma. I don't think you've seen
I
it
have not
either.
seen that either.
So I have asked for a draft of that to see what that looks like. But I think what they're doing is just basically saying that, we will be involved in some conversation with the Clackamas Service Center, that, will be a support in, having this like evolving conversation about what the pilot finds out. But I don't see the city of Milwaukee as an oversight agency on this. I see us as the jurisdiction that highlighted that this is a need and put forth an ask. And I think the county is also being really thoughtful in like helping to evolve this. They've not done something like this before, which is what they were looking for when they made a call for city-led initiatives. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to take note of the lessons that we've learned and the things that we've found to be effective over the formation, like the planning period, because I think that should another city want to do something like this, they're probably going to need the playbook.
Well, and I definitely don't want the city to be, I just want to see whatever reporting they are creating. I'm not asking for special reporting for us, but I would like to start and on whatever basis they report to the county. I'd like to see.
My guess would be that it's quarterly and it's probably numbers served. And you'll probably get more information from me just because I'm excited about the program, and I'll be sharing pieces of it in my council reports because I'm going to be meeting pretty frequently with everybody who's involved with it.
Do you know, for example, on the cooling center, as Councilor Adjourn was saying, lots of grants, lots of IGAs. They've asked us to put a little scope of work together where we talk about the data we're going to be providing to them. And for us, it was annual counts, number of people served, number of, things we purchased with the grant funds. I know it's a little bit different with Clackamas Service Center because they had an existing contract. I don't know how their scope negotiations have gone, but I'm sure there's some agreement within that of a reporting element.
And we do have an agreement with Clackamas County, to advance 2 months on this. And so, so I do feel confident that with the announcement, then we'll be able to see, referrals come through and not be stalled until, not be stalled for another month.
Yeah.
The nutrition aspect of this did have $25,000 a year to augment food boxes or grocery provision. And so that program had actually been on hold, and because of this infusion, they're able to get that up and rolling again. So I met last week with the 2 individuals at the service center that run that program, and I'll be bringing more information to council about what that looks like. They're looking at a particular day for deliveries in Milwaukee, and the reason it shut down before is because they didn't have a lot of volunteers. So I'll put the friendly challenge out to my colleagues to maybe do some food box deliveries, and if you get volunteers that want to help, then they get our undivided attention for the time that we're in the car, right?
I think that's the best part of it being a pilot, right? Because then we really get to see what it does and who it's, because my hope is that it's not just a one-time 2-year pilot. I'm hoping that we can keep this going because the need, I don't think we need a pilot to tell us the need, right? Yeah. But I think with that, we'll be able to see, okay, well, is it hitting the target that we would want as a city-led initiative? And then we can tailor it more towards that. Because again, like I said, my hope is to continue that program. It's not just a one-time thing, so.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Both.
Any other council reports before we?
I have just a few really quick things.
Okay.
It's October and it's like a flurry of events and activities. I just wanted to flag for you all on this Friday. It's the first Friday downtown, and it's also the 1-year anniversary of our grand opening of this building. So there will be a fun little reception in the community room and the chance to officially unveil our new piece of art in the lobby. So
Let's go.
it's very cool.
And are you offering tours? Or you're not offering tours?
We're not
Oh,
putting
okay.
offer tours, no.
Okay.
But you can enjoy the community room and some light refreshments. Then the next.
And meet the new city
And meet the new
manager.
city manager. Yeah.
Hey,
A month after that, you can meet even more people. Another First Friday event, but this time it's out at Milwaukie Floral, and this is the soft launch of the business of Milwaukie that Councilor Stavanger talked to us about last time. So just a reminder, both of the First Fridays coming up have good stuff. And the last thing that I want to talk about on the dais is we have a council dinner scheduled for this Saturday. We're aware, this Sunday, aware of one person who can't attend. I just wanted to ask the group if the following Sunday does work better for people. Which would be the 13th, I believe. I can absolutely be there.
Oh, you can?
I can.
Okay.
yeah,
Counselor Anderson will probably be feeling better by then. Does that work for everybody else?
Okay.
Getting nods. Okay.
October
Okay.
13th, I will move.
And then let me know, I'll bring an apology dish.
No apology necessary.
We have too many calendars going at our house.
Well, Counselor Anderson already told me salad, so others can let me know separately what they would like to bring.
For your flexibility.
Sure. Okay, with that, we have 3 minutes to talk about parks. I want to really thank. That's what you had, talking to the county commission, it's true. I want to really call out the sort of newly formed Friends of Milwaukie Bay Park group. If you're interested in, if you're out there listening in the public and you're interested in learning more, I would encourage you to join that Facebook group, Friends of Milwaukie Bay Park. I would encourage you to look at their website, which is mbp.wtf. Which stands for Where's the Funding? Or on the back of the T-shirts that Councilor Kosherbani has on, it says,
you can see it too. but-
working together for our future. You can
You can read that.
interpret WTF. You got it.
What else does it stand for, Mayor?
Where's the-
I thought it was pretty clever of the people who created the website. They've done there were a lot of community members who did a lot of work. We had approximately 50 community members out last Friday along McLaughlin. It was a beautiful evening. All of the counselors came, at least for part of it. But it was really a community-led effort, and it was great to see so many people out and getting lots of honks from the passersby in their vehicles. Some great signs. You can see a lot of that on social media. We also got coverage on Coin 6, on KATU Channel 2, and in the Milwaukie Review today. I had a list of things. So I've been watching, the county commission has had a lot of meetings has had a couple of meetings in the last 2 weeks where they've discussed parks issues and in their written responses to residents who have written them, encouraging them to build the park. They have said things in the meetings and in those written responses that I think are sometimes outright untrue, sometimes half-truths. I had a list. I was going to try and go through everything. I'm not going to do that, given our time constraints. May circle back with that. I may circle back with that later tonight in council reports. And I guess maybe I should just leave it there. I was going to try and tick off a few of them. But maybe I'll just leave it there and say that I think in particular, well, no, I think I will just leave it there for now. Maybe I'm going to reserve the right to come back to this at the end of the regular session. But I want to let everybody have a chance to have some dinner. So with that, if no other council reports, we will adjourn until 6:30 for the regular session. Thank you.
Thank you.
keep them in here to keep them as warm as possible.